not the only one that has piles of scraps, right, in all these different sizes. Here's one thing I like to do, and that's make a background cloth so that I've got something new to stitch on. And I just really want to start to use up a lot of these little bitty scraps. And these are just these are all my purpley ones, and some other things looks like mixed in here. So I'm going to pull those aside. It's going to be a wall hanging probably. And I'm just going to lay out the fabrics in a way that makes me happy. I'll probably use my trusty little glue stick to hold them in place once I made up my mind. And then I'm just going to stitch it down, just going to tack things down with some sewing thread, and then I'll have something I can stitch on. So the first thing I did was just try to sort these out into broad color groups. And these are definitely a light, almost like a lavender blue, I guess, because there's a little bit of a blue tinge to it. These have been dyed with all sorts of things. They might be India inks, it might be watercolors, it might be diluted acrylic paint. So I think the fact that this is light, it's kind of a cool color, but I think I could use it to blend in some of the areas if I needed to. These are the only real purpley purple ones I have, and that was kind of the color I wanted to work in. So I want this to be predominantly what I use. I think these were dyed with avocados, and so it's a very distinct color, and it doesn't go with my purples, so we'll save that for something else. I have a few pinks. I will save those for something else. And then I've got some really dark grungy purple tones, and that might almost be on its own piece. So I think this is what I have. So that's what I'm going to play with. Probably enough for 2 or 3 pieces, but I'm just going to try and do one. Okay, so I have everything tacked down, and it is really roughly tacked down. If you are somebody who likes precision, this method may not work for you. You'll have to be a little bit more precise. For my way of working, it's perfect because every little wonky bump and wrinkle is just going to add more texture. Did not worry about catching every little corner. It's enough that it's not going to fall off. I have little bits of white showing. I'll bring you down here. So I've got little bits of the white coming through. That's okay. I've got wrinkles, I've got puckers. It's okay. All of that is just more texture, which really makes me happy. So the one thing to think about if you're doing something like this is the weight of this going to be enough to support the stitches you want to do? I think I'm just not going to be doing a lot of fancy things, just probably very simple stitching on this. So I don't think the support's going to be as much of an issue. It could be. I've had it happen before where it turned out that I wish that I'd had more support because this is very thin material, just stitched to more thin material. But I can always decide if I start working on it and say, no, it's not thick enough, I can just go ahead and put another piece behind it. But in retrospect, maybe I should have gone ahead and put some wadding or felt or something on it. But that's okay because we're just going to roll with it. Now, what do you want to do with these other little things or little pieces you have left over? Like some of this fabric, when I ripped it, I got some really nice raw edges, but the fabric curled. But that's just great to add on here as texture. Any of these little snippets like this, they don't have to go in any particular order. You don't want to see that kind of rough edge? Well, just go ahead and tack something like this down. Tack it down on your corners. I have, it's not cheesecloth, this is actually medical gauze, and I think this was probably dyed around the same time, so a lot of the same colors. I can cut pieces of that. I could go over the whole thing with that. And see, this is actually still doubled, I think. I think I can get even thinner. Let's see. This is super thin. So I could do this. Ooh, that might be kind of fun. And that would give me one more layer. Look at that. I could come over this whole thing with this. Now that would be really interesting. I haven't done that before. It's just medical gauze, so it is super fine. And what I did is, while it was still all rolled up, I just rolled it in my paint or ink or whatever I happened to have out that I was getting color on. And I was going to show you on the stitches here. Some of the stitches, I started off being very, very precise in little tiny stitches. These are little tiny invisible stitches almost. You wouldn't notice them. For me, any of the stitches, and I got lazy and I just went really wide. I've done some where I've done super wide stitches. It just adds more texture to it. So if that sort of thing bothers you, again, you might want to do like an iron-on stabilizer behind the little patches. Maybe you can do preciseness. I can't do pins. I spend more time trying to get the pins down than trying to do the stitching. So that would be interesting, but I would lose a lot of my background. But I can pull holes in it. So see, that's something else you can do, and then pile that up. But I do think parts of this will be on here, and I might just couch some of it down. I've got some purple fibers, and of course, that's something kind of interesting to play with. Don't know that this one suits yet, so maybe this is the one that I like on it. But I do like having this. So some of this where it didn't feel quite as purple. I think instead, let's just cut a chunk of this off. All right, I want 3 pieces. That's what I decided. I want 3 pieces of this of differing widths and lengths. So I'm just randomly cutting them. That'll kind of tone down the pinkish orange over here because I just really want to embrace the purple. All right, already that changes things. And then I'm thinking if I take this and I'm just gonna kind of couch it down. I'm gonna have to see if I can find some more purpley goodness that I can play with. But that's sort of where I think I'm going with this one, and I will be back when I'm working on it some more.